Welcome back to Crazy Dave's Crew. I'm Laura, and you are watching Thursday Threads. We've been getting some questions, and I'm sorry, I've been terrible about answering some of them. So I'm going to try to answer a few of them today. I've been asked about alternating seams. There's been some issue, some people with how to use the cutter ruler combo. In one of the quilt groups I belong to on Facebook, there was a lady who was making up a bunch of 4 patches to put together to make 16 patches. And she wasn't sure how to square them up. So there's been a number of questions, and I want to try to answer some of those. Question 1. What do I do with all my scraps? Well, if they're a decent size, like these, and no, those are going to be little bitty. But, you know, if you're just sitting around and you don't know what to do or you don't feel good, you want to sew, but you don't know what you're sewing, just to get you in the groove, I can, sew on these. If they're 2.5 inches square, I like putting them together. I like keeping them there for my leaders and enders, which I did a video on. And I'm having a lot of fun with this. What I'm doing with some of these now is I'm putting these together to make a 4 patch, and then the next square is all butterfly fabric, which I think will be real pretty, and that could be I think it'll be real pretty. It can be a gift. It can be just a little extra thing that you do. Like I said, by the time you get done, you've got an extra quilt and you didn't even realize you'd made one. Now, so I keep a scrap jar, scrap bucket, scrap bag. Now, they're a little bitty like this. I mean, absolutely. The trimmings, the selvage. Yeah, I keep those. And you can cut them up into little pieces. Use it as stuffing. For pet beds, dolls. Anything that needs a little bit of a cushion. You can cut them up into tiny pieces and put into a compost pile or a composter bin. You can put them out for the birds. You know, there's a lot of things that you can do without filling up the landfill. Now, it will take longer to decompose, but than paper or leaves. And even if they're just a 1-inch block, postage stamp quilt, just keep putting those together. You could do a crumb quilt with the pieces that are a little bit bigger, strip quilts. So there's a lot of things you can do with all your leftovers. Now, if you don't want to use your leftovers, like your little squares or your strips that are usable, find out if someone at your church or a community center is maybe making things, or maybe there's a woman that you know, or a man, that they just love doing this, but they're on a fixed income and they can't afford to buy a lot of fabric. There's an idea. So there's one question. What do I do with my scraps? I find another way to use them as much as I can. Composting, cushions, scrap quilts, just any way to use them. Question 2. Alternating seams. So let's talk about that. So I had someone say they didn't understand what I meant by alternating seams. So alternating seams, I have these 2 pieces. I like to nest or butt up my seams. So I want my seams being ironed in opposite directions. Okay? So that when I put them together, they just fit together. Let's get a close-up of that so that my viewer who asked this question, I can give her a good answer. Don't go away. I'll be right back with a close-up. Alright, so I've got this seam going towards the green. And I'm just going to finger press it. Okay. So it's going towards the green. And this one, I'm going to finger press it to the purple. Again, I'm going to the darker color. Okay. So when I turn it upside down, right sides to right side, I can just match those seams up beautifully. But I like to, they need to be alternating. So one goes this way and the other one goes that way. Alternating direction. And I like to do, I've had some comments about all the pinning I do. Well, I like to do Henry Ford's old assembly line. I can sit and do all my matching up of my seams. And I like to just pin it right there. And then I'll set it aside till I have a stack of these. And then I'll just chain them out through my machine. So if I don't go ahead and pin them now, then by the time I'm ready to sew them, they're going to be all scatty-wad and not matched up, and then I've got to rematch them up before I sew. So that's why I do that. Alternating seams. This one's going this way, this one's going that way. Now some people like to do open seams, and that is entirely up to you. And that's what they mean by an open seam. So if I open, if I can get it. So I can open that seam where the pink is folded over towards the pink, the purple's folded over towards the purple. So that is what's known as an open seam. This is another one of those. It's all personal preference. And sometimes it depends upon what piece you're sewing. So, alternating seams. Yeah, for my lady in the quilt group, how do you square up a 4-patch? Well, I'm going to take a ruler, and this is a 2.5 inch ruler. This is one of my go-tos, especially when I'm working with little pieces. And I am going to put the 2 1/4 line right on that seam. So I'm going to use this seam right here and this seam right here. So everything on this side of the seam should be 2 1/4. Everything from this seam down should be 2 1/4. Everything from the seam over this way is 2 1/4, and everything up from the everything up from this seam is 2 1/4. So I'm going to take my ruler and I'm going to place it 2 1/4 on this up and down seam. But it gets even better because I'm also going to put the 2 1/4 line going there. And let's see, and I've already done this, so it's already perfect right there. And then you can switch it around and do the same thing. 2 1/4. Now, what if I wanted this to be a 4-inch block? Well, then I would use my 2-inch mark on each seam to take care of it. And you can do it each side, or you can try to combine. But that is how I square up my 4 patches. You need to go by the center seam. And then they will match up perfectly. Look at that. See? You got the whole seam down. So the seams match, the edges match. They are all the same size. Easy breezy, yeah? Alright, so you've been having some issues with the Fiskars Ruler Cutter Combo. 1, make sure that you're on a completely flat surface. I had issues and I thought it was the ruler. I was on a folding table and I just happened to be right at that, you know, fold. And so it raised it up. So I was not getting, you know, so if something's underneath it, you're not going to get a good pressure, and it's not going to be even, it's not going to work. And it can be a pin. So first of all, make sure that your work surface is completely flat. 2, make sure that your blade is tightened, but not too tight. Okay, and if you see that, can you see that? Make sure you're using the right size blade so that it comes just beyond the spot right here. Okay. If something is in the way, and it can be lint, anything, if it's in the way and if it doesn't, it won't come down, you're not going to cut. How do you use it? Well, let's pretend that I want a 2.5 inch strip out of this fabric. 1, I need to make sure this is all straight, all even. And I do like to do multiple layers. You've got these numbers on the side. It goes up to 6.5. Okay. So I want 2.5. So I'm going to get my 2.5 mark. Okay, let's make sure we're at the fold. The fold's going to be straight. So there's 2.5 right there. And then I'll move this side down to where it's 2.5 all the way across. Okay? And I don't care if you're going side to side or if you're going up and down. It's going to work the same way. I like to go left to right, right to left. Some people prefer to cut going up and down. You want to make sure that you're holding on to this. And if it's not quite what you're wanting it to be, I'll turn it over. Two and a half. Oh, that's lovely, right along in there. And then just kind of trim it. So that is one way to use, and a little bit of troubleshooting. I've had somebody else ask me, what if I needed to cut a 10-inch block? All right, we're going to pretend here, so I don't really want to cut a 10-inch block. But if we pretend, and we're going to pretend this is even, and we're going to pretend it's been pressed. All right. Well, I'm going to want to put it let's just say it's for a 10-inch. This is when you use your mat. They've got inch spaces. So line your fold along one of the inch lines. And you want 10 inches. So I'm at the 14-inch mark. So I'm going to come down here to the 4-inch mark. Okay? Because then there's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We've got 10 inches here. From this line right here up to this line, we've got 10 inches. And that's using your mat as a guide. Oh, what if you wanted 12 inches? Well, then you're going to come down to the 2. You got to make sure that this stays up here and it stays straight. Remember, measure twice, cut once. Now from this end down to the blade, it's 12 inches. Does that make sense? Yes, maybe? So make sure your blade is sharp. You have to change these out, just like you do your rotary cutter. Make sure you're using the right size. Make sure there's nothing stopping it from going all the way through. And don't try to cut too much. So I hope this has answered some questions. Make sure, I said a number of people say they love this. Some other people say they hate it because it doesn't work right. If you're having trouble, and I did have trouble with it at one time, and I just wasn't sure about it anymore. And then I figured, oh yeah, I've got something underneath it. It's not coming down all the way. I said, you've got a space right in there. You need to make sure there's nothing stopping that from going all the way down. Okay? Make sure you're watching your fingers. But change the blade, make sure it's going all the way down, and don't overstake your fabric. You don't want too many layers. We talked about scraps, we talked about alternating seams, and how to square up your 4-patch. And the method I showed you on that, it works any size 4-patch. If you're doing a 9-patch and you just want to make sure everything's right before you keep going, make sure that as you sew pieces on, make sure that the first 2 are the right size, and then the next one. Use that seam as your guide. I sincerely hope this has answered some of your questions. I sincerely hope that this has helped. And remember, there really is no such thing as a dumb question. We all had to start somewhere. LQS. Actually, I heard someone saying that, and I'm thinking, okay, what is it? What? LQS. I had to look it up. Local quilt shop. WOF, width of fabric. There's some terminology and there's different things. You don't know till you know, so don't be afraid to ask. Look for us on Facebook at Sewing and Crocheting for Beginners. We love to see pictures. Love pictures, love comments, questions. If I can answer them, I will. May take me a little while. I'm slow, but I will try. I hope you're having a wonderful week, having a wonderful day, and I hope that I will see you here next time, right here on Crazy Dave's Crew. Thanks so much for watching.